Chapter 7. Bryant awakened abruptly, disoriented. He reached over and knocked his alarm clock off the nightstand to shut it off. With a sigh, he heaved himself out of bed, showered, and dressed. His parents were already up, typical for adults on a Saturday morning. As Bryant walked into the kitchen, he overheard his dad in the other room saying, "And my only informant has vanished completely." "Morning," Bryant said as he wandered into the dining room, sat down at the table, and stretched. "I fixed you some breakfast, Bryant," Laney Johnson said cheerfully. This morning, Martin was laboring over a folder of printouts and black and white photos, spread out over his end of the dining room table. "Morning," he grumbled, and took a sip of his coffee. "So, do you have anything to go on at all?" Laney asked her husband as she set a plate of French toast in front of Bryant, which he immediately began eating. "Plenty of different directions, just no reliable sources," Martin answered in disgust. Bryant glanced at his watch and took a swig of milk. "I'd love to chat, but I don't have time," he said. "Where are you going?" Laney asked, just as the sound of a car horn echoed in from out front. Bryant raised an eyebrow in approval at the perfect timing of his mother's question, then stood up, grabbed his dishes, and put them in the sink. "Jason wants to show off what he's been working on over at N-Tech for the last few weeknights. Then we're headed to the mall to hang out before Mark's party tonight," he said. "Behave," Bryant's father counseled, as usual. Bryant walked out of the kitchen and grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch. "Bye," he called as he walked out of the house into the cool morning breeze. He took a deep breath and walked across the yard to the Acres driveway. The Trans Am sat grumbling in the driveway, Jason behind the wheel and Shawnee and Karen in the back seat. Bryant pierced Jason with a questioning glare as he climbed in beside him, to which the driver responded with a growl of, "Don't ask." Then he turned to back out of the drive, asking the girls, "We ready?" "Sure are," Karen replied. "What's up?" Jason asked Bryant after he backed the Trans Am out, and they headed on through the neighborhood. Bryant shook his head. "Nothing much. You?" "Nope. Just up all night. Same old, same old." Jason didn't look the worse for wear, already having been awake for over 3 days straight. His unique biological makeup allowed him to stay awake for days at a time. It was so severe, in fact, that it took prescription medication to knock him out for at least once a week. Otherwise, he tended to simply fall asleep where his body ran down. "I can't wait to find out what's so exciting that you had to show us this morning," Bryant grumbled. "I'm sure that Jason finds your enthusiasm overwhelming," Shawnee said, and Jason couldn't miss the sarcasm in her tone. It was going to be one of those kinds of days. N-Tech Laboratories owned a development and manufacturing complex on the outskirts of town that covered over 100 total acres. Over a dozen large blue and white buildings were scattered around the area, each one's placement depending on what kind of work was being done inside. Jason's pass card and employee pin gained them access, and he pulled them around to one of the smaller buildings deep inside the property. He kept up a steady stream of banter about the computer industry and N-Tech's part of it as he drove, a dialogue that quickly lost both girls' interest. As they walked through the sterile corridors, Shawnee managed to get a few feet between she and Karen and the two guys, so they could talk without being overheard. "You and Bryant seem to be doing good." Glancing at her, Karen replied, "I guess so. We're not hot and heavy, if you know what I mean, but we enjoy spending time together." "A lot of time, you mean?" Karen only shrugged. Shawnee sighed, not really knowing how to glean the information she wanted from her friend. "Think you'll date even after school is out?" "I don't see why not. Neither of our jobs are full-time, so that leaves plenty of time for seeing each other." "Yeah, but you guys already see each other almost every day." With a smile, Karen agreed. "Yep, except for Sundays. I spend those with my family." "That's right, you're Mormon. I thought you weren't supposed to date outside of your religion." Shawnee hadn't intended for the conversation to head this direction, but she felt willing to explore it if Karen was. To her surprise, Karen laughed. "It's up to me who I date. My dad encourages me to date within the church so that I don't have problems with a guy's morals and values differing from mine. Bryant and I don't have that problem. He comes from a conservative family, and so do I. We haven't even kissed yet." Again, Karen had surprised Shawnee. "I didn't know that. I thought you had kissed lots already," she exclaimed in an urgent whisper. Both girls began to laugh, which brought the attention of the guys, who stopped walking and turned to look at them. This caused the girls to stop, too, leaving the gap wide between them. "What are you two talking about that's so interesting?" Bryant asked, his eyes never leaving Karen. Waving them forward, Shawnee replied, "Nothing that you need to worry about. Move along." Scowling, Jason said, "Come on," and led Bryant forward again. "I mean, I want to kiss him, but it's important to me that it be right. I'm not a prude, if that's what you're thinking, Karen explained. That's not what I meant, I promise. It's just, Jason and I kissed on our first date, and we've been kissing ever since. What does that say about me? Sighing, Karen replied, As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't say anything about you. You've dated for 2 months. I'm hoping that by the time Bryant and I have dated for 2 months, we'll have kissed at least once. This caused the girls to laugh again, but this time their boyfriends didn't react. Trying to get the conversation back around to her original point, Shawnee asked, So you think you'll be dating still in a couple months? I hope so. Why, do you know something I don't? Karen's question sounded concerned, like Shawnee had sparked fear inside of her with all of her probing. No, as far as I know, he adores you, she replied. Whew, you had me scared for a second. Sorry. Do you think you and Jason will still be dating this summer? Karen asked, a question which Shawnee intentionally ignored. Her relationship with Jason was not something she wanted to discuss with anyone, not even her best friend. Jason led the foursome through several long corridors, eventually punching his access code into another secured door and emerging into a large white computer room filled with racks and racks of gray computer processors. This is where the magic happens, kids, he announced as they entered. The room had a sterile, sanitized feel, and it was cold. Mauve carpet silenced their footfalls as they moved between the banks of machines. Shawnee shivered as Jason directed them to a cluttered desk that faced out into the rooms. He stepped around and slid easily into the command station before the keyboard, and looked out over one of the station's 2 dark monitors to the computer server room before them. All right, let's see what horrors you've created this time, Bryant said. He had long sensed Jason's excitement for the project he had been unofficially helping Entech's R&D team with. Shawnee and Karen each grabbed office chairs as Jason turned on the myriad of equipment with the flip of one switch. Without warning, 2 monitors turned on, 6 lights flashed around the room, and squeals and whistles assaulted everyone's senses at once. The barrage took all of them by surprise. This is interesting, Shawnee noted over the pandemonium. Jason looked over his shoulder and grinned at her. It's okay, he yelled over the noise. It's just running a self-test. Have a seat. Sounds more like it's getting ready to explode, Shawnee remarked as she pulled her chair up next to him so she could watch over his shoulder. Karen walked over to look at the computer. In such a mess of pieces, it looked unlike any other computer she'd ever seen. A second later, a synthesized voice said, Entech Laboratories Active Intelligence System, Diamond, online. Startup sequence complete. All subsystems read positive. Pause. Good morning, Jason. Hey, Diamond, Jason replied, glancing back at Karen near his side. On the screen of the secondary monitor, placed atop a silver office shelf, appeared a high-definition computer-enhanced picture of Jason's face. All of his features were there, from his eye color to his light eyelashes. On the main monitor set beside the computer terminal appeared a finely detailed computer-generated face. Diamond. When he opened his mouth, there was even a tongue there. Identification verified. How are you? The computer asked a second later. As he spoke, his voice gradually changed from that of a synthesizer to a normal human voice. Amazing, Karen said slowly. The computer actually looks interested. I'm fine. How are you? Jason asked, eyeing the room of hardware again, concerned that he'd see a red warning light blinking on one of the servers. Everything looked good. Excellent. Identification verified, he repeated. Hello, Bryant. Jason, there are 2 unidentified people in the room. Should I notify the authorities? Diamond asked and raised an eyebrow at the girls. This question had a more natural sound to it. No, Diamond, they're friends of mine. Commit them to memory. Bryant, you know. To my left is my girlfriend, Shawnee Blake, Jason introduced and winked at her. Height? Diamond asked. Caught off guard, Shawnee said, 5'4" tall? Weight? Diamond continued as if he were taking notes. 110? Shawnee asked good-naturedly. Bra size? Diamond requested. He winked at her and she stifled a laugh. Let me guess who mapped his personality profile, Karen teased. Shrugging, Jason replied, Me mostly. Then he added dryly, and Dal helped. Lovely, Shawnee exclaimed. I was just born bad, Diamond said meekly. His eyes still held a hint of mischief and he growled seductively at Shawnee. Diamond, Jason scorned in a reproving tone. That's enough. Now, standing on my right is Karen Richards. Height? Diamond requested quickly with a wink and a smile. Diamond! Bryant demanded. Sorry, the computer apologized, but the smile remained. Jason looked at his friends. It's okay, he said as he caught a grin from Shawnee. Then he smiled and turned to the keyboard. He's cool. What else can he do? Karen asked and slowly walked around the room, trying to recognize some of the equipment there. Jason smiled proudly and looked at his friends. His active programming is pretty basic right now. At night I've been working on subroutines that will expand his abilities quite a bit, but they're not active yet. Right now he sees through a video digitizer. The camera up above the second monitor takes a picture of you and sends it to the computer. Then the computer can recognize you later, Jason explained. The camera in question slowly moved to the right and left. Occasionally it would focus on one person. Other times it panned back to accommodate the work area. When the camera moved, Diamond's face moved in the same direction, so that if the camera focused on Bryant, Diamond would appear to be looking directly at him. As for the face and personality, you can thank Dal Seltzer at Entech Labs for most of that. We've already assembled over 2,000 original responses. Plus he has a natural language and grammar processor and basic tone and vocal fluctuation rules, which allow him to assemble his own responses based on the personality Entech's engineers created. Sometimes you'll notice that he responds identically to two different questions that have similar answers. I haven't figured out a way around that yet. Couldn't you have warned us it was going to throw a tantrum? Karen asked, a hint of humor in her voice. A tantrum? I beg your pardon, madam. I am very sensitive, you understand, and you just injured my feelers, Diamond interrupted. However, I'll forget that you said that and also apologize for my user's short-sightedness and lack of courtesy, he added politely and cast Jason a dirty look. Feelers? Bryant glanced at Jason, who shrugged. Is he supposed to act this way? Karen asked. The playful insults brought Jason right back into reality. Entech has a special team that designed the artificial intelligence software to act as the brain of the whole system. But as I said, Dal's to blame. The coolest part is that Diamond has access into Entech's mainframe, which gives him real-time reaction and processing time. In retrospect, though, we may have overdone it. May have? Karen asked with a smile. Becoming bored with the humans, Diamond began to sing White Christmas, supplying his own background music from one of his many memory databases. Is this another personality quirk you didn't plan on? Shawnee asked and laughed. Jason merely shook his head in mock desperation. How in the world do you manage to do these things? She asked and put her hand on his shoulder. Just comes naturally, I guess, he replied and laughed. Shawnee and Karen smiled and began to sing along with the computer the last verse of White Christmas. When the song finished, Jason sighed and said, Thank you very much for that. Look out! Diamond interrupted with a wicked grin. A loud rendition of Grim Reaper's See You in Hell blasted from the speakers. Whoa! Bryant exclaimed and winced against the volume. Shawnee ducked behind Jason to escape the assault of sound, and Karen covered her ears where she stood. Knock it off! Jason yelled. He reached over to the side of the computer and pushed a small button marked Real-Time Reset. The music stopped and the room fell eerily silent, except for the whirring sound of the computers in their racks. Diamond's face remained on the screen, but he instantly became mopey. Party pooper, he mumbled and stuck out his bottom lip. Karen slowly uncovered her ears, and Shawnee peeked out around Jason's left shoulder. I notice he's got your taste in music, she whispered to him. Jason had to smile at that and stole a quick kiss. Nice guy, but I can't say much for his social graces, Bryant said slowly. Hey, you take that back, Diamond joked. Well, as cool as this is, and it is cool, I've got some serious shopping to do before the party tonight, Karen announced, turning to Bryant. Standing up, Bryant asked, To the mall? Patting him softly on the cheek, Karen smiled sympathetically and said, Yes, hun, to the mall. Then she kissed him on the cheek and turned to Shawnee. Shall we? Right behind you, Shawnee called to Karen's exiting form. She waited a moment for Jason to power down the machine, then the two of them quickly followed.